There is a strange kind of silence that arrives when someone hears a truth they were never prepared to hear. Not a loud truth. Not a dramatic truth. Just one sentence. One sentence that slips into the heart and refuses to leave. And according to this story, that is exactly what happened to your soulmate. Because 11 nights ago, they sat across from a woman known for seeing what others missed. They expected curiosity. They expected comfort. Instead, they heard one sentence about you. And since that moment, sleep has become a stranger. But before I tell you what she said, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt connected to someone you couldn't explain? Someone who kept appearing in your thoughts for no reason? Someone you tried to forget, yet somehow remembered even more? If you have, stay with me. Because this story may feel strangely familiar. It began on a rainy evening. The kind of evening where the streets shine like mirrors and every passing car leaves behind a trail of reflected light. Your soulmate had not planned to visit the psychic. In fact, they almost turned the car around 3 different times. Something felt foolish about it. They were practical. Careful. Not the type to chase mysteries. Yet their heart had been carrying a question for months. A question they could not answer. Why couldn't they stop thinking about you? The strange part was that some days they barely knew who you were. Other days it felt as though they had known you forever. How could both feelings exist at the same time? Maybe you've asked yourself the same thing. Maybe you've wondered why certain people arrive in your life and leave fingerprints on your soul without even trying. The rain tapped softly against the windows as they entered the small room. The psychic was older than expected. No dramatic robes. No glowing crystal balls. Just calm eyes. Eyes that looked as though they had witnessed thousands of stories. Your soulmate sat down. For a few moments neither of them spoke. Then the woman smiled. A small smile. Almost sad. Almost knowing. And she asked a question. Who is the person you're trying so hard not to think about? The room went silent. Because she was right. Immediately right. The name appeared in their mind before they could stop it. Your name. Even now, imagine that moment. Would your name appear in someone's heart that quickly? Comment below and tell me honestly. Have you ever felt like someone was thinking about you even when they were far away? Your soulmate didn't answer aloud. They didn't need to. The woman simply nodded. As though she had already heard the answer. Then she closed her eyes. Seconds passed. The rain outside grew heavier. And suddenly the atmosphere shifted. Not in a supernatural way. Not with flashing lights or dramatic music. Just a feeling. The kind of feeling that happens when a conversation becomes unexpectedly real. The psychic opened her eyes. And for the first time, she looked concerned. Not frightened. Concerned. As though she had stumbled upon something important. Your soulmate felt their chest tighten. What is it? They asked. The woman studied them carefully. Then she said something strange. You're not losing your mind. Your soulmate laughed nervously. But the woman didn't laugh back. You've been questioning yourself, she continued. You've been telling yourself these feelings don't make sense. The smile disappeared from their face. Because once again, she was right. Every late night. Every memory. Every random moment when your face appeared in their thoughts. They had tried to explain it away. Coincidence. Loneliness. Imagination. Anything but the possibility that their heart was trying to tell them something. The woman leaned forward. And that is when everything changed. She spoke the sentence. One sentence. The sentence that would keep your soulmate awake for 11 nights. The sentence that would replay over and over in their mind. The sentence that would make them question every decision they had made during the past year. She looked directly at them and said, "The person you're thinking about has been carrying a pain they never learned how to talk about." Silence. That was it. No prophecy. No prediction. No dramatic revelation. Just that. But somehow it hit harder than anything else could have. Because suddenly your soulmate remembered things. Small things. Moments they had overlooked. The way you smiled while hiding sadness. The way you changed the subject whenever conversations became too personal. The way you carried strength that looked suspiciously like exhaustion. Have you ever done that? Have you ever convinced everyone you're okay while quietly carrying something heavy? If you have, leave a heart in the comments. Because more people understand that feeling than you realize. The psychic continued speaking. Softly. Carefully. Almost as though she didn't want the words to break. People see their smile, she said. But very few people notice what it costs them to keep smiling. Your soulmate stared at the floor. Because suddenly memories were connecting like pieces of a puzzle. They remembered moments when they sensed something deeper in you. Moments when your eyes seemed distant even while you were standing right there. Moments when they wanted to ask if you were okay. But didn't. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they thought it wasn't their place. Maybe they believed there would always be more time. But what if there isn't always more time? What if the words we never say become the words we regret the most? That question haunted them as they drove home that night. The rain had stopped. The streets were empty. Yet their thoughts were louder than ever. They replayed the psychic sentence again and again. The person you're thinking about has been carrying a pain they never learned how to talk about. The words felt personal. Not because they were mysterious. Because they felt true. And sometimes truth is more powerful than mystery. That night they couldn't sleep. Then came the second night. The third. The fourth. Each night brought new memories. New questions. New realizations. What had you gone through that nobody understood? What dreams had you buried? What disappointments had you hidden? What battles had you fought alone? Your soulmate didn't know. But for the first time, they wanted to know. Not out of curiosity. Out of care. There is a difference. And that difference changes everything. Days passed. Something inside them shifted. The world looked the same. But they didn't. Everywhere they went, they noticed people differently. The tired cashier forcing a smile. The older man eating alone. The woman staring silently out a bus window. They began realizing how many people carry invisible stories. Including you. Especially you. And somewhere during those sleepless nights, a realization emerged. One they weren't ready for. Because the psychic's sentence wasn't the only thing she had said. There was something else. Something she almost didn't reveal. Something she hesitated to mention. At the time, your soulmate barely noticed it. But now it was becoming impossible to ignore. A second message. A second observation. One that connected directly to you. One that explained why your presence felt so unforgettable. One that made their heart race every time they thought about it. For 11 nights they tried to dismiss it. For 11 nights they told themselves it couldn't be true. But each night the message returned. Stronger. Clearer. More impossible to escape. And on the 12th night, they finally decided they needed to hear those words again. Exactly as the psychic had spoken them. Because hidden inside that second message was a truth that could change everything they believed about you. And perhaps everything you believe about yourself. But what she actually said. And why it left your soulmate staring at the ceiling until sunrise. That's where this story takes an unexpected turn. The 12th night arrived quietly. No storm. No dramatic sign. Just a room filled with darkness and a heart filled with questions. Your soulmate sat on the edge of their bed, staring at the clock. 2:17 a.m. They should have been asleep. Instead, they were replaying every word from that evening. Especially the words the psychic almost didn't say. The words she hesitated to reveal. The words that somehow felt bigger than everything else. Finally, they couldn't take it anymore. The next afternoon, they returned. The same small building. The same quiet room. The same woman waiting by the window. This time, she seemed unsurprised to see them. Almost as if she knew they would come back. Your soulmate sat down. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then they asked the question that had been consuming them for 11 sleepless nights. What was the second thing you saw? The woman took a slow breath. Her eyes softened. And then she said something your soulmate would never forget. I saw someone who believes they are harder to love than they really are. Silence. Complete silence. Because immediately, they thought of you. Not because you had ever said those exact words. But because sometimes pain speaks without speaking. Sometimes people reveal their wounds through the things they don't say. The opportunities they avoid. The compliments they reject. The happiness they think they don't deserve. And suddenly your soulmate remembered dozens of moments. Moments that made sense now. The times you doubted yourself. The times you downplayed your kindness. The times you acted strong while quietly carrying insecurities nobody else could see. The psychic continued. Many people spend their lives trying to become worthy of love. She paused. But the truth is they were worthy long before they started trying. Your soulmate felt something shift inside them. Because maybe that was the real reason they couldn't stop thinking about you. Not because you were perfect. Not because you had all the answers. But because somewhere beneath your strength, your humor, your determination, and your resilience, they sensed a person who had been carrying too much alone. A person who needed to hear something different. Have you ever felt that way? Be honest. Have you ever looked in the mirror and focused only on your flaws? Have you ever convinced yourself that everyone else had value except you? If you have, comment, "I choose hope." Not for the algorithm. For yourself. Because sometimes the words we type are reminders our hearts need to hear. The conversation continued. The psychic looked toward the window. Sunlight spilled across the room. Then she shared one final thought. Not a prediction. Not a guarantee. Just an observation. The people who have suffered deeply often become the people who love most deeply. Your soulmate sat quietly. Because those words described you perfectly. You had faced disappointments. You had experienced moments that changed you. Having the courage to keep going despite a difficult one. For the first time in nearly 2 weeks, your soulmate felt tears forming. You had carried burdens others never noticed. Yet somehow, you still cared. You still hoped. You still kept moving forward. And maybe that's what made you unforgettable. Not perfection. Persistence. Not having an easy life. Not because they were sad. Because they finally understood something. The sleepless nights were never really about a psychic. The sleepless nights were about awareness. About realizing how easy it is to overlook someone's value. About realizing that some people enter your life and quietly change you. About realizing that hearts often recognize what minds take longer to understand. As they left the building, the world looked different. The sky seemed brighter. The air felt lighter. Not because life had suddenly become perfect. But because perspective had changed. And perspective can change everything. Days passed. Then weeks. Your soulmate found themselves becoming more intentional. More grateful. More honest. They stopped assuming people knew how much they mattered. They started expressing appreciation more freely. They started listening more carefully. They started paying attention to what was hidden beneath the surface. Because of you. And whether you realize it or not, that's one of the most powerful things a person can do. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be perfect. Sometimes your greatest impact comes simply from being who you are. The kindness you almost dismissed. The encouragement you barely remembered giving. The smile you offered on a difficult day. The compassion you showed when nobody was watching. You never know whose life those moments touch. You never know whose heart remembers them. And perhaps that's the deeper message hidden inside this story. Maybe the psychic wasn't revealing a secret. Maybe she was revealing a truth many people forget. That every person is carrying a story. Every person is fighting battles we cannot see. Every person needs grace. Including you. Especially you. If you've been doubting yourself lately. If you've been questioning your worth. If you've been carrying burdens nobody knows about, take this moment as a reminder. Your struggles do not define your value. Your mistakes do not erase your purpose. Your difficult seasons do not determine your future. The chapters that hurt are not the entire story. There are still pages left to write. There are still people left to meet. There are still reasons to hope. And somewhere tonight, maybe someone is thinking about you more than you realize. Not because you're flawless. Not because you're extraordinary in some impossible way. But because your presence mattered. Because your heart mattered. Because you mattered. The psychic's words may have stolen 11 nights of sleep. But they gave your soulmate something far more important. Perspective. Compassion. And the courage to see you clearly. And perhaps after hearing this story, they've given you something too. A reminder that you are far more valuable than the doubts inside your head would ever have you believe. If this story touched your heart, let me know in the comments. What is one thing you've survived that made you stronger? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more heartfelt stories filled with hope, purpose, and inspiration. Until next time, take care of your heart. And never forget. Some of the most beautiful things about you are the things you can't see in yourself yet. But there is one last piece of this story that has never been told. Years from now, your soulmate would barely remember the name of the psychic. They would forget the color of the room. They would forget the rain outside the window. Yet one memory would remain perfectly clear. The moment they finally stopped asking, "What if I'm wrong about this person?" and started asking, "What if I'm right?" Because for 11 nights they had been searching for certainty. What they found instead was courage. Courage to stop running from their feelings. Courage to stop pretending they were unaffected. Courage to admit that your presence had changed them. Not in a dramatic movie-like way. Not overnight. But slowly. Quietly. Like sunlight entering a room one small ray at a time. The truth was, they had spent months convincing themselves that you would never understand. Months telling themselves it was safer to stay silent. Months hiding behind logic whenever their heart tried to speak. Have you ever done that? Have you ever felt something deeply but talked yourself out of it? Have you ever stayed silent because rejection seemed easier than vulnerability? If you have, you're not alone. Most people lose opportunities not because they fail. They lose them because they never try. And that realization hit your soulmate harder than anything the psychic had said. One evening, while driving home beneath a sky painted orange and gold, they pulled their car to the side of the road. For a long time they simply sat there. Thinking. Remembering. Feeling. Then they whispered something to themselves. A sentence nobody else heard. A sentence that changed everything. What if they need to know how much they matter? Not how much they were loved. Not how much they were missed. How much they mattered. Because there is a difference. People spend their entire lives wondering if they matter. Wondering if anyone notices. Wondering if their existence leaves a mark. Wondering if the kindness they give ever reaches anyone. And maybe you've wondered that too. Maybe you've had days where you felt invisible. Days where you questioned your purpose. Days where you wondered whether your efforts meant anything at all. If that's you, hear this. Every life creates ripples. Every act of kindness travels farther than we realize. Every encouraging word becomes part of someone else's story. Your soulmate finally understood that. And once they did, sleep returned. Not because all their questions were answered, but because they no longer needed every answer. Sometimes peace comes when we stop demanding certainty from life. Sometimes peace arrives when we simply choose faith. Faith in people. Faith in growth. Faith that what is meant for us will not be lost. The psychic sentence had started a journey. But the journey ended somewhere unexpected. It ended with gratitude. Gratitude for the people who enter our lives and leave us better than they found us. Gratitude for the lessons hidden inside heartbreak. Gratitude for the hope that survives even after disappointment. And most of all, gratitude for the chance to begin again. Because every sunrise is a beginning. Every day is a new chapter. Every breath is another opportunity to become the person you were meant to be. So if you're listening right now and carrying doubts, let them rest for a moment. If you're carrying regret, let it rest. If you're carrying fear, let it rest too. You do not have to have everything figured out. You only need enough courage to take the next step. And sometimes that step changes everything. Maybe that's the real message hidden inside this story. Not that a psychic saw the future, but that one sentence awakened a truth. A truth that had been waiting inside someone's heart all along. A truth about compassion. A truth about connection. A truth about seeing people for who they truly are. Including yourself. So before this story ends, I want to ask you one final question. If someone could see the best part of your heart, what would they find? Kindness? Loyalty? Strength? Hope? Write your answer in the comments. Someone reading it may discover they are not alone. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of this growing community of dreamers, believers, and hopeful souls. Remember this. You are not defined by your hardest day. You are not defined by your worst mistake. You are not defined by the voices that told you that you weren't enough. Your story is still being written. And some of the most beautiful chapters may still be ahead of you. Until next time. Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. And never underestimate the power of one sentence to change a life forever.